Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the organizing coordinator and water justice organizer here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Before we get started today, as usual, I like to do a very brief plan acknowledgement. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, it's important that we remind ourselves that we do gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I am joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. So if you are unsure of whose land you are on and you would like to find out, you can always visit native-land.ca to learn more and find out. So thank you all so much for joining for another episode this week of Environmental Justice Now. Though the month of June has come to a close now, we want to use this episode to highlight an event that we actually were able to participate in, celebration of Juneteenth a few weeks ago, with a few of our neighbors out in Bristol, Virginia. So the Bristol Area Ministerial Alliance, also known for short as BAMA, some community partners, along with Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, hosted a Juneteenth community-wide celebration of freedom with food, fun, and fellowship. So this provided an overall great opportunity to uplift the work that BAMA has been doing to speak out against the toxic landfill within their own community. And to tell us more about this event and this effort, I have the pleasure of being on the show today with VIPL team member Kadeska Bray, who helped organize the event. So, hey Kades, how are you doing?
Hi, Leah. Thanks for having me. It's glad to be back. I feel like I haven't been back on the show in a long time.
Right.
But I'm doing good. Happy Friday, everybody. And yeah, it's June 30th. We're wrapping up June, but we really wanted to highlight the fact that we had an amazing event for Juneteenth with our neighbors in Bristol. So just a quick reminder for folks who are not familiar with what's been happening in Bristol. Bristol is a small city in Southwest Virginia, and they are plagued daily with toxic gases, making their life unbearable for some of the residents there, specifically the low income and the Black neighborhoods and residents there. So Bristol City manages a quarry landfill located near the center of the city's most vulnerable residents. And in recent years, due to delayed maintenance, climate change caused increased precipitation, and other issues, gas emissions from the landfill have been at times very harmful, and made the air quality toxic and increasingly harmful for many of the Bristol, Virginia residents and the Bristol, Tennessee residents. So this Juneteenth, we highlighted that many communities are impacted by environmental injustices like this landfill, and they are still fighting for the freedom to breathe, and to have clean air, and drink clean water. So the Bristol City landfill is one of the examples of what many communities are facing across Virginia, whether it be through a landfill, a pipeline, or distribution center, or other things like that. So the negative health impacts of the Bristol City landfill definitely restricts the freedom and the well-being of the many Bristol community members. So what we really wanted to do was highlight, using Juneteenth, the celebration of freedom, as a reminder for folks to, um, you know, think about the circumstances, but also share their experience and their stories. And
Yeah.
so we were there to help collect oral stories as well as videos of what community residents have been feeling. And we wanted to highlight the voice of those on the front lines of this environmental disaster. So Bristol residents were able to share their experiences of how the landfill has personally affected their lives and the lives of their families. And I think it might be a good time to share some of the videos now.
Oh, for
And
sure.
just a little disclaimer, we are still in the process of editing some of this video, so you're just getting raw footage. So I just wanted to put that out there.
It's wrong for this.
All right.
My name is Demoria. I'm a resident of Bristol, Virginia. And the landfill has affected me and my family. We live about 8 miles away from the landfill. And on days like today, sunny, beautiful days, as well as days where it's rainy, we can smell the odor from the landfill. It permeates our home. It's caused headaches, nausea, and things like that. So really concerned about the cause of the fumes that are being emitted from the landfill, and really ready for a resolution from this problem from Bristol, Virginia.
And I'm going to play another video.
Number of clients in the last few years regarding the smell and the breathing issues that our folks are having related to the dump. We've partnered with other churches and communities to try to, community partners, to try to make sure we're meeting the need for people to get their air filters and things like that. And it's a never-ending story. This is continuing to go on and on and on. And the people that we serve, their homes, their children can't play outside. They can't have company. They oftentimes, when they cook dinner, are not able to eat it because the smell is so atrocious. We've had people that even had to go get hotel rooms in a different town because they couldn't sleep at night to be able to go to their job. I moved here to Bristol, Tennessee in 2021, and I lived not far off the Parkway and was shocked that when I would go into my condo with my little pup, that I had these weird smells and had no clue where they were coming from, and they would get trapped in there. And I have asthma and other serious medical issues, and this is just going on and on. And the community managers said, this is the dump. This is not anything related to your condo, to your HVAC system. This is the dump issue that we're all having to deal with, and it's now reached into Bristol, Tennessee. And recently, I was diagnosed with a new lung disorder, which is very upsetting, and I don't really feel like I'm confused about why I have this diagnosis, even though I have asthma. So I'm not saying it's related to the dump, but it does make me wonder, because there are times when the smell still gets trapped inside my home and my children can't come visit. And it's life-altering. It's life-altering in one of the worst ways, and it's a never-ending story for all of us.
Thanks so much for sharing, Kadas. Oh my goodness. That was only a small piece, I imagine, of some of the interviews that you received that day.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of the folks were, telling us that they had to invest in a second residence, had to literally evacuate their homes because the smell would really, come in late at night, and then it would just stay trapped there. And, as they're sleeping, they're breathing this in. Some folks can't sleep as they're breathing this in, and the closer you are to the landfill, obviously it's really worse. And, being that this landfill is located in a low-income community, it makes it even harder for that community to combat the health issues that come with, breathing in toxic air all the time, as well as to just like purify their homes. Air purifiers definitely cost money. So the lady right before this, the last lady that was sharing, was talking, she mentioned a little bit about the air purifiers and how there's been a community-wide effort to make sure everyone has one in their homes. And we also know some of the folks who are really in in dire need of help in terms of financially, cannot also, even if, they get a free filter, they can't really use it because of the fact that it runs up their electricity bill. So it's like a double-sided issue. And I think what is really great about that community, despite all of this, they are coming together, they're helping their neighbors, they're bringing back that sense of community back. And it's horrible it happened because of this landfill, but it's also beautiful to see in a place like Bristol, Virginia, that, communities from the wealthier side are stepping up and helping out folks that are really in dire need. Because there are folks, who can afford to leave their residence and get another one further away from the landfill, but there are folks who are forced to stay. So yeah, I think it was very, it was a sad moment. It was very eye opening, but it was also beautiful in the sense that to see people take back the power and really complain, um, rightfully so, right, about this issue and get their voices out, their frustration out was beautiful. There was a lot of moments of, frustration, cries, and yeah. It was definitely a learning experience. I think it also teaches us that frontline stories matter, and it's just always better when people share their own stories.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's also just a really great. It was the event in its entirety was very timely for Juneteenth weekend. Coming together and finding joy amidst failures that have been brought upon you due to others, like our local governments, our federal governments, our state governments, that have failed to protect the health and well being of our communities. So, still standing in solidarity with one another in spite of that, I think I would totally agree, is absolutely beautiful. And it is devastating to hear so much about so many visceral and extreme impacts, specifically from this landfill. So, thanks so much for sharing that today. And I'm hopeful that in the future we can have folks from BAMA come back onto the show again. We had the pleasure of having them on the show once before to share more about the things that they've been experiencing in relation to the landfill and in efforts to try and get it closed and how it's been impacting their community. So we're hopeful that they will return onto the show again soon to share more about those efforts and share more about their asks, specifically about what they're looking for and hoping for their own communities in Bristol. So yeah, I think ultimately as well, it makes you think of like how are these communities surviving even amidst having to deal with all of this landfill, the odor from the landfill, and the negative impacts that come with it, along with the toxic, noxious gases, or the toxic gases that make people nauseous, make people have these nosebleeds, these very scary effects, right? And on days like today and yesterday, when the effects or the smoke from wildfires are still coming on, adding on cumulatively as well to those negative impacts again. What happens with those communities as we're even suffering here in normally fairly safe air quality? What happens to the communities who are already struggling with poor air quality, right? So, absolutely. Did you have any final takeaways, Kadas, that you wanted to share?
No, I think it was just like you mentioned. It was a beautiful moment on Juneteenth to showcase the people power, right? The community was able to. I think it was the first event they've had around Juneteenth, and it really, they had, barbers out there giving free haircuts. It was
Yeah,
a lot of stuff happening,
community. Yeah,
exactly, that showed that sense of community that we don't really see in a lot of places.
right.
So I think I just want to shout out BAMA, the Bristol Area Ministerial Alliance, and just their fierceness and their continued strength, to
Yeah.
really fight, like you said, representatives and city folks that failed to do their job, and they're fighting for, their community to stay alive and to stay together. So
Right.
that was beautiful to see.
Right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Kadesh, and telling us more about the event. It sounds like it was quite the celebration, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from BAMA, hopefully in the relatively near future. But as usual, if you'd like to keep up with everything else that VIPO is up to, like this event that we were sharing today, along with some of our upcoming events and initiatives, you can always join our supporters list by clicking this link here. If you haven't already been signed up to be a supporter of VIPL, please join us here. And as usual, we'll be back, same place, same time next week. Thanks so much, you all, for joining, and thanks again for this.
Hi,
Have a great
everybody.
weekend.